We are going to start off here by talking about Trae Young. We're going to revisit that trade, talk about what he got traded for, what they said no to from the Raptors, and the significance of all of that information. So again, it's old news at this point, but we're just going to get to it now because I missed a week or 2 weeks of content. But important information kind of came from this one here because Trae Young got traded for, well, I mean, first of all, let's look at the trade. The Hawks got rid of Trae Young. It was known around the league that they were going to trade him, right? Like, it wasn't a secret. So, that automatically decreases your value when you outright say guy's going to get traded. They traded him to the Wizards, his preferred destination. I think that's for the financial reasons because he probably thinks best chance of getting a max. Traded for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. Now, Corey Kispert's definitely not a scrub. Like, he's a solid, rotational guy. But, you're talking about Trae Young here. You got CJ McCollum, just salary filler for this one. Flexibility for the Hawks when the contract comes off the books. You got like a solid rotation player. But we're talking about Trae Young. We're talking about a 4-time All-Star. We're talking about, seriously, this is one of like the best playmakers in the NBA. Guy can give you, high 20 points per game. Just Trae Young. I was pretty stunned that the Hawks didn't manage to get any draft capital out of that trade. And some Raptors fans were kind of speculating, like, could the Raptors not have done better than this? Like, those who are interested in Trae Young, like myself, could the Raptors not have done better than this? Like, surely we would have been a team to offer picks for Trae Young, at least one pick. But turns out the Raptors had an offer, but according to the Hawks, it wasn't better than what they got. So, reporting from Jake Fisher, who is very good with his Raptors sources, say that Toronto actually offered a package built around quickly and draft capital for Young before last February's trade deadline and maintain a level of interest in Young this season. Yet, sources say the Hawks had no interest in a quickly headline package given the future money he's owed. The Hawks staunchly prioritize the ample flexibility they now have before the February 5th trade deadline and possibly into free agency next summer by taking CJ McCollum's expiring $30.7 million salary as the key return in the Young deal. So they value the expiring salary of CJ McCollum over the caliber of play of Immanuel Quickley. Now, for Immanuel Quickley, this is a very damning piece of evidence against where his game is at right now and where his contract is at right now. The fact that the Hawks said no to that, like, they turned down picks with it. It is clear as day the situation for Immanuel Quickley and for the Raptors. The situation is that the Raptors, if they do want to trade Quickley, this is comfortably, easily perceived to be a negative asset. This is a negative asset. The Raptors are going to have to pay to get rid of this Immanuel Quickley contract. They are going to have to go above and beyond with a trade in order to include Immanuel Quickley, it seems, because it is just straight up undesirable to own this contract. He's making $32.5 million this season, then $32.5 million for the next 3 years after this, all of which is guaranteed to the player. And when the Raptors signed him, 2024 offseason, it was a bit of an overpay at the time. I was, expecting to come in to like the high 20s range. 32.5 was a bit of an overpay for the player. And I thought like high 20s, like, okay, you're paying a lot just to keep him, to make sure you keep him. You look back on it now, obviously in hindsight, pretty bad decision. But at the time, you think about like, who was going to you don't want to lose him, but he was a restricted free agent. Like, who was going to compete with this offer? Who was going to give him more? Granted, the teams can give him less and he can still make that level of money because of the tax situation in Toronto, heavier than some other places around the NBA. But who was going to match this? And, the Raptors, okay, they gave it to him. I accepted that at the time. They're paying a bit too much, but the hope is that at some point in that 5-year contract, he plays up to the point where it's not an overpay. He's playing up to the value of that $32.5 million contract. But ever since he's signed it, he has, honestly, he has regressed. It has gotten worse since he signed that deal. Last season, hampered by injuries. So, comparing what he did with the Raptors in the half season he spent here after getting traded, where he averaged 18.6 points, 42% from the field, almost 40% from three. Last season was somewhat similar. He played less minutes because of the tank and injuries, but he averaged 17 points, 42% from the field, 38% from three. Not a huge difference when you go to the per 36 numbers, from 23-24 to 24-25. So we thought this year, all right, he's healthy finally. He's going into this season healthy finally. No excuses. He's got to start producing this year, but it has been a very shock level of regression for the player. Sure, touches are going to come down when you inject Brandon Ingram into the team, but he's down to 16.5 points per game, still at 42% shooting from the field, and alarmingly, he's fallen all the way down to 35% shooting from three. We've really shoehorned him into this spot at point guard because his style of play is best suited towards a shooting guard. I think that's pretty evident. But we put him into this position as a point guard because he's a bit undersized for the shooting guard position. His size is more fitting for that of a point guard. So the Raptors wanted to get him in this spot, and they wanted him to develop in this position. What needed to happen with that is, as the Raptors were, in their rebuild mode and getting better, hopefully, you wanted his playmaking to develop. But we've seen very obviously in his 39 games this season, and granted, he's been available, and that's a good trait. We've seen in those games this season that the playmaking doesn't seem to have improved at all. And a lot of the decision-making that we're seeing is a bit concerning. Some of the decision-making is very concerning for the player. In that win against the 76ers, he was awful from the most part. He had a decent fourth quarter overtime, but some of the decision-making in key moments was just completely off. And it's alarming that these sorts of mistakes are still happening as he's getting towards his prime. And as we're a year and a half into this massive contract. So that's why the Hawks had no interest in taking him. That's why we've seen reports that the Sacramento Kings have no interest in a Immanuel Quickley built package for a guy like Domantas Sabonis. Now, I don't really want Sabonis. That's fine with me. But there is a definite lack of interest in Immanuel Quickley around the league because of the contract and because of the level of play that he has produced for the Raptors. It's putting us in a tough spot. It's putting us in a little bit of a corner here because there is a lot more money and time dedicated towards him going forward. There's not a lot of interest from a trade front. I don't think they're going to be able to trade him because if they do trade him, it's just getting off of that contract at the moment. So I think the way forward, unfortunately, is going to be we've got to hold the asset, and he just needs to be better. He needs to improve. He cannot keep performing to this degree. We need better. We need him to start producing. When your game, because hasn't developed much as a point guard. This is more of a shooting guard playing in that position, which sure is fine, but because the point guard elements of his game haven't come along as we wanted, so much of his game revolves around his ability to space the floor and hit threes. And when he's not doing that part of his game effectively, everything else starts to crumble with it. And it has to improve. He has to improve as a playmaker. He has to improve as a scorer. He has to improve as a defender. Or the Raptors will be capped by having him on the team. There's been games where Jamal Shed, second year, 45th overall pick, has to close instead of him. That just can't be happening. So we'll see. He could be the center of some sort of trades we get towards the trade deadline. But, I mean, you look around at the teams out there. Who's going to want him? Why would anybody want that and think, oh, hell yeah, I'll pay the other 3.5 years of that contract? It's a bad look for the Raptors. Daniel Harrison says that IQ's value is rock bottom at the moment, so not an ideal time to move him, so we just got to be patient. And that might be the best way because there's just no value in it. You have to pay to get off it. Is it better just to hope he gets better? Smart and Sherman says IQ is a good defender and is good in clutch, but how much he's getting, he needs to put in more. He needs to stop selling and start to lock in. Debatable on the defender front. He came in as a guy with like potential there. Haven't seen it develop. Was never that good on ball. Was more like an off ball. He was better in those spots, but even then, it's been like hasn't been to the level you'd want for the Raptors. And Feels Good Man says it's fun watching IQ dig this team into a hole for 3 quarters, then dig us out in the fourth. Part of that is true. He has been really good in fourth quarters and overtime this season when he's needed to be, but you could make a case part of the reason they're in that position sometimes is because of him. Sure, that might be making it a bit of a stretch, but as a whole, Immanuel Quickley needs to step up, and the lack of interest and the money owed to him shows the dire situation the Raptors are currently in with him.